I didn't think it would be as difficult going to see Mr. Trupt the second time. I knew what to expect. I was wrong. Seeing Mr. Trupt in that bed again wasn't any easier. I thought he would look better. I thought he was improving, but he looked the same. Still just lying there in his bed, surrounded by the same beeps and tubes and monitors and noises from the hall. It was all just the same. I felt the lump in my throat growing. Mom's hand touched my shoulder. She saw it happening, too. I stood at the side of my teacher's bed in a state of disbelief, feeling helpless. Then the doctor walked in. At least I figured he was the doctor. He had salt and pepper hair, a white coat, a smart face. He nodded to us and then moved toward Mr. Trupt. He checked some numbers and fluids, pulled back Mr. Trupt's eyelids to look at his pupils with his penlight, and then started to leave. "Wait," I said, "wait." He stopped and turned around. "Are you Mr. Trupt's doctor?" I asked. "Yes, I'm Dr. Wilkins, one of the physicians." "Is Mr. Trupt going to get better?" I saw him take a big breath. He looked at my mother first, then me. "I don't know, son." "What's wrong with him? He's in a coma, but what's wrong with him?" Dr. Wilkins pulled some chairs over for all of us to sit in. He sat across from me. "Mr. Trupt did a lot of wrestling while growing up, and even into college," he started to explain. "It turns out he had to give it up because he suffered multiple concussions along the way. These concussions have weakened his brain in certain regions. The snowball that was thrown hit one of those weaker areas, the temporal region, to be exact, and it cracked his skull." Dr. Wilkins looked very sorry as he said this. I don't know if he expected questions, but I had them. "Does that mean Mr. Trupt wouldn't be in a coma if he hadn't suffered the multiple concussions?" I asked. "I can't say for sure, but probably not." "What do you do now? Just wait?" Dr. Wilkins took another big breath. I got the sense there was more to the equation, more bad news, or news he was hoping not to share. He glanced at my mother, who nodded, giving him the okay to explain. I didn't want a sugar-coated report. I wanted the facts, and my mom knew that. "Mr. Trupt has some bleeding going on behind the crack, and blood is collecting, in his brain. We hoped it would stop, but it hasn't. He'll need to undergo brain surgery so that we can clamp the bleeding vessels. And then he'll be okay?" "If it works, hopefully, yes." I heard the word "if" loud and clear. "And if it doesn't?" I said. "Brain surgery is risky. There's always a chance that patients won't recover." "You mean die," I said. Mom put her arm around me. "What's your name, son?" "Luke." "Yes, Luke. Your teacher could die during or as a result of the surgery, but I'm going to do my very best to not let that happen." I got up and stood by Mr. Trupt's bed. I looked at him. Dr. Wilkins got up and stood next to me. "He's a pretty special teacher, isn't he?" the doc said. I could only nod. Speaking would have made me cry like a baby. "I'll do my best, Luke. That much I can promise." He squeezed my shoulder and left the room. Brain surgery, I thought. Mr. Trupt might never come back. I ran out into the hall. "Dr. Wilkins," I yelled. He turned around. "Does anyone else in my class know what you told me?" Dr. Wilkins walked back toward me. "We didn't know anything about his concussions at first," he said, "but another teacher, Miss Newberry, was able to provide us with Mr. Trupt's background information. I guess Mr. Trupt had told her about his wrestling days, and it's a good thing because we had no other contact person for him." I stood there quiet. No other person. There was nobody for Mr. Trupt. "But to answer your question, there is another student in your class who knows what I told you," Dr. Wilkins said. "Who?" I think he said his name was Peter. I was silent. Peter? I didn't think Peter had been here. Dr. Wilkins turned to leave. "Wait," I said. "Does Peter know about the concussions or just the brain surgery is next?" "Just about the brain surgery. Why do you ask?" "Because Peter threw the snowball."